welcome everybody to this World Satsanga held on the 28th of June 2023 in conjunction with Kevin Moore and The Moore Show. And again, I encourage you to visit his YouTube channel, The Kevin Moore Show, where he will have more additions to his docu-series, I Call Us Channelers. And Kevin has got his own particularly unique way of observing, recording, interacting with different individuals and himself in terms of gaining information and extra knowledge about who and what we are from the greater reality. So I do encourage you to go and see his YouTube channel. Well, this week's lecture is about understanding spiritual information, and specifically when there appears to be conflict or complete differences in the information, even from the same individual, rather than just a number of other individuals. So, for instance, if you have conflict or complete contradiction, why does this happen? And does it mean that the information is misinformation? Or does it mean that information that's given to us now is wrong as well? For instance, if we have information that's given to us now, and the only way it can be explained is in our language of the day, our knowledge of the day, our educational level of the day, does that mean that because it's being explained in that way, it's misinformation, when in actual fact, the information is much deeper than that and explains concepts that we don't have the capacity to understand? Right now, that is. Clearly, in the future, we might have, or another event space, we might have other ways of understanding different levels of information and different concepts, because basically we'll be more expansive because we know a lot more than we do now, and we know now a lot more than we did 500 years ago. For instance, try explaining a computer to somebody in the medieval age. We'd be branded as witches and burnt at the stake. So when we have information, we have to consider a number of different things. One is the integrity of the individual who's giving us the information. Are those people telling it as they're getting it? Are they embellishing it? If you can trust them and the information that they're giving you is correct, in most of the cases, or from your own experience, because you've got corroborating information from a different location where the primary level of information that's been given to you from somebody else has no contact with the other individual or the other source of information that corroborates that information. And it could be also from personal experience. Then you know that the individual that you're interacting with or getting the information from is true, even if there's conflict or some level of contradiction. Now, why would there be conflict or contradiction? Well, we don't exist in a linear environment. And so when we exist in a linear environment, we expect that what people receive is going to be true. Specifically, if it's individuals who are able to log into an event space where there's one particular outcome for one particular individual or a group of individuals. And maybe that outcome doesn't happen, for instance, or doesn't happen in the right way, or happens in a completely different way. Does that mean that the information that was given in the first place is incorrect or with misinformation? And the answer is no, because we don't exist in a linear perspective. We exist in a holistic perspective. But we do sometimes interact with things as a result of certain things having to happen at certain times. You can call them milestones if you want to, but I call them points within the event stream within an event space. So because event streams and event spaces are affected by us as individuals, whether we're incarnate or not, and we affect them by making decisions, by making choices, if we have a number of different opportunities to choose from, then we can move from one particular event stream to another event stream, which can result in another event space. Now, this doesn't stop part of us from being recreated by event space, so that maybe there was two other opportunities for choice we had, that those other two opportunities are also fulfilled. So we end up being duplicated or put into a parallel condition, a multi-parallel condition, as it happens. Not just two, but multipulous versions of ourselves can exist, doing extremely minor differences in terms of what we've chosen, and how and what where the point at which we chose it from, compared to massive differences. For instance, in one particular event stream, we may be in an accident, which results in us losing a leg. In another event stream, we might have got in the car, or we might have delayed something by having to go back, something we've forgotten, and therefore that point where the accident was doesn't exist anymore. So we then get on another event stream where actually that accident didn't happen. So when you start to look at this, you start to see that there is a level of, shall we say, or I'll call it a percentage of potential that a particular event stream that results in us experiencing certain things or being in a certain place at a certain time or knowing certain things is based upon us staying upon a particular event stream. So when mediums or other individuals who are psychic or sensitive tune into somebody after they've asked the question, am I going to still work for this company in 2 years' time? Am I going to have children? Am I going to have any illnesses? Am I going to be rich and famous? All this materialistic stuff, and they give particular answers, and maybe those things don't happen. That's potentially because at some point, us as the individual whose future, if you want to call it that, or other event stream was predicted, may have been affected by us actually deciding to do a completely different direction when we had the potential to choose one direction versus another. I can remember a long time ago, I got this real strong gut feeling to go to a university and apply for a course. The course was there offered to us very loosely, but it felt really strong that I got to do it. And that allowed me to gain a lot more scientific information, and allowed me to understand things about why we can't see other entities that are on a slightly higher frequency level, but nevertheless they still exist. And that's because of the frequencies associated with the physical universe and subsequently the multiverse. So when we look at all of this, we think, well, actually, there's not just one particular point in existence. I'm not going to call it a point in time because time doesn't exist. But there are multiple points, and they can all be at the same point, the same juncture. And those junctures give us the opportunity to choose between one juncture and another juncture to get down into event space, which is a particularly linear effect. But when we experience higher frequency existence, that which is experienced in a linear way is experienced in a completely holistic and concurrent way. By that I mean everything exists as concurrently or all together. So that which we classify as being the future, or the past, or the present, is all in the now. Now we can't understand that because our processing capability, our sentience, is associated with the human form in this low frequency, is not as powerful as it would be were we disincarnate and in some form of communion with our true energetic self, or higher self, or Godhead, or oversoul, whichever you want to call it. All those words mean the same thing. So we start to realize that we only see a very small part of, or experience, or detect, or are in tune with a very small part of what the overall picture is. Because what we're seeing is linear, is one thing following a predecessor. Yeah, everything happens because something else has happened. Whereas when we're in a higher frequencies, the very high frequencies, everything happens concurrently because event spaces are all linked together. Well, when event spaces are all linked together, that which was in the past is in the now. That which will be in the future is in the now. That which is in the now is everywhere. And so when we pick up things and are able to understand them from a linear perspective, and we get one piece of the jigsaw puzzle, we're only seeing one piece of the jigsaw puzzle. We're not seeing that this particular jigsaw puzzle with this particular piece could have a completely different landscape, and that particular piece of the jigsaw puzzle can change as a function of that landscape. Or actually, that particular piece of the jigsaw puzzle could contain all the different variations associated with what that landscape could be. So when we get information that is of quality, shall I say, but is in conflict with or not in accordance with what was previously broadcast by somebody who is of quality, then that's because they're accessing event space in one particular juncture, in one particular event stream within that event space, or a particular point where different event streams join together, or different event spaces join together. So we have to understand that something that is understood or sensed or detected or downloaded or channeled is only one of a number of different potentials. The potential for potentials, the potential for possible potentials, the possibility of possible possibilities of possible potentials, etc., etc., etc. But these aren't isolated, and this is where we get things mixed up. These aren't isolated. They happen concurrently at a certain point. Right now, from where we are, we see things in a linear perspective. At a certain point in event space, and I'm noticing this now when I'm working on this particular book called Beyond the Origin, which is an event space odyssey, because I'm going all over the place with event space to points where the origin has finished this particular evolutionary cycle. It understands all of itself. It's populated all of the structures associated with structural space, all the 12 groups of 12 levels of structure, and it's moving into substructural space or nothingness. And so that creates a single event space because the event space doesn't exist in nothingness because it's part of structural space. So we start to realize that if you can just grab that and understand and therefore realize that everything is happening concurrently, but it's just that we can't process it. It's a little bit like looking at a roll of film in a cinema. All we can see is one of those exposures, not them running at 60 hertz or 60 frames a minute, where we see what looks like a moving picture. We see it, everything at the same time. All of those images that create the possibility that have been taken at 60 hertz, or I think now it's 200 hertz or something now with high definition televisions, the refresh rate. Everything happens concurrently. So it's just like seeing a whole roll of film for a film, such as 2001: A Space Odyssey, or one of the Indiana Jones films, or one of the Star Wars films. It's like seeing all of those little exposures that creates the reel of film, the footage, all in one go. But we're only capable of seeing one of those images. And that's why when good quality spiritualists or metaphysicists who are sensitive enough dive into the greater reality, into event space, all they can do is pick up one of those images. Next time they go in, they may pick up another one, but it's not exactly the same. They may think they're close enough to pick up the same information, but maybe they're 10 frames later. So try to understand that there's a huge picture out there. Not every one of the jigsaw parts of the jigsaw puzzle, not every one of the pixels is static. It changes depending upon the collective event spaces that are all together as one. And therefore, when you understand this conceptually, you don't have to understand it intellectually, just conceptually, or recognize it. That's the best way to do it. Then you'll understand that there may be times in the future, another event space, where you will start to see maybe things that aren't particularly in keeping with what you were told by a person previously. But maybe that person is diving into the roll of film and picking out what he thinks is the same exposure on the same piece of footage, but might be 10 or 12 or 20 or 50 exposures later. Okay, food for thought. Now it's time for the questions and answers session. Okay, well, welcome everybody to this June Satsanga. And first two questions. One's from last Satsanga, actually from Jagjot. It said in India, Hanumanji, the G part at the end is like a term of endearment or reverence. So that's why that's why people in India call somebody a Guruji, because it means that they respect and love them. Anyway, Hanumanji is a very popular and one of the most worshipped entities in India. I was wondering if you could channel some information on one of your Satsangas. Well, I I've done some meditation on not just this particular entity, but a lot of other entities as well. And one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of the characters in Hindu texts and the history basically all comes from, and the science basically all comes from an era where it was towards the end of the Atlantean period. So skin color changes such as blue, green, even obviously black and white and all those sorts of different colors, and the images of human bodies with various different aspects of animal bodies on there as well was a function of their, let's call it materialism. It was like now we have the ability to have expensive cars, expensive houses, expensive jewelry to illustrate our wealth. In the Atlantean days, they used to play with the genome, and they used to play with certain aspects and have certain forms that related to different animals as well. And the more bizarre the form was, the more affluent the individual. But some of these entities were leaders, and they had various different levels of power, such as politicians, such as scientists, such as medical scientists or doctors, individuals who are capable of doing great things by the use of accessing the higher frequencies. So all of these different entities that have, shall we say, skill sets associated with them are basically those individuals who were the leaders in those areas, and they were the ones who came back or stayed on Earth to help us reincarnate into bodies again and kick off the next level of civilization, which was the Egyptian civilization. So all of the Hindu historical characters, even down to Krishna. I mean, Krishna was on the same level as Christ. So Krishna means Christ, basically. But you've got all of the other ones there as well, such as Shiva and Vishnu. They're all the imagery associated with them is because they were very affluent individuals and great leaders, and they had their bodies, their genome changed to show what how affluent they were. So this is why they're all different animal types within the human body. And there's some of this in Thailand as well. If you look at some of the temples in Thailand, a little bit of it there as well. So the understanding and the knowledge has been passed down through the Hindu Vedas, for example, is also there in Thai history as well, and to some respect in Japanese history as well. It's interesting. So basically, they're revered because in essence, it's in deep legend-based memory that these individuals were to be respected and to be followed because they had certain skill sets or certain abilities as leaders. Okay, next question is from Ula, and this is actually quite good because this leads into a lecture I've got planned, which is under the request of Ula for next satsang, which is about artificial intelligence. And Ula asks, Elon Musk, in brackets Neuralink, his business, is developing brain microchips, for instance, like Google in the brain, supposedly to learn maths, languages, how to fly a helicopter, treat depression, etc., increase mental capacity. There are many risks without a technology implants, such as brain infection, inflammation, even Alzheimer's disease later. They also predispose the person to potential abuse by others who want to control and manipulate them based on what information they are given and what information or memories are downloaded from them. And I can see this next comment. It reminds me of the Borg collective in Star Trek. What is the real agenda here, by the which is guy on Earth? How seduced will humanity be by outer technology? Were brain microchips in Atlantis and other civilizations on Earth? No, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Is it a phase we go through or a dead end before we learn to develop our inner technology and connect to the greater reality by ourselves? There are certain things that we're exposed to that are trying to replace what we can do if we meditate and if we raise our frequencies. Connection. Oh, I've got a friend here, a rather wet friend. My cat. You can go and sit somewhere else, mate. You're wet. You're wet. Basically, we used to, and still can, if we work in ourselves, communicate through telepathy, empathy, and we can also bilocate and translocate our physical form and manipulate physicality. And so things like being able to access the internet, things like telecommunications, telephones, video telephones, satellite-based systems, are all the replacements for what we can do naturally should we decide to focus upon it. So things like microchips or should we say cybernetic enhancements are basically one way of attracting us to achieving this easily without working on ourselves. So basically, it's a bit like us going into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights, same as Jesus did, and other leaders were given similar challenges, where we can either take the easy way and get caught up in karma, the need to come back and experience material existence again and again and again, so we can start to detach from it and navigate around it. Or we can work on ourselves, which takes a lot longer, and we can achieve all of these things without the need for any form of mechanical, electrical, electronic, or software-based assistance. So it's all a bit of a, if you like, he's acting and presenting an alternative. Then it's up to us to choose it or not. So I can understand the potential for using it for medical grounds. For instance, if somebody breaks their spine, for example, and therefore the nervous system is damaged so that they can't walk, and whether it could replace those sorts of things. But in essence, it's something that we shouldn't be going down. We should be basically starting to understand that we can achieve all of these things without the need for mechanical assistance. Okay, right. So let me just go to the rest of the questions now. Okay. So basically, it's a distraction for us, right? Okay. So Jack got another question here. As we awaken and work our way to enlightenment, does the percentage of sentience projected by the true energetic self also increase as we grow spiritually in this physical body? No, but our evolutionary content does. In effect, the percentage of sentience is something that the true energetic self decides to bestow upon an aspect of itself when it's projected into a vehicle. This instance is the human body, to be able to experience, learn, and evolve through navigating around an environment and the circumstances within that environment that other incarnates also create. Number two, awakening and enlightenment, two separate processes. That first one awakens and then work on to get an enlightenment. Awakening and enlightenment is the same thing, in my understanding. It's understanding who we really are. What I would suggest is a precursor to awakening and enlightenment is realization that there's something beyond the gross physical, something beyond the material existence that we're in now. So recognition is first, and awakening and enlightenment is basically the same thing. Although you could potentially argue that awakening is the process leading towards enlightenment, but an enlightenment is full realization of who we are. So we've got realization that there's something different to what we really are. We're bigger than we are. The awakening process, which I'm classifying as being both the same as enlightenment as well, would be various different steps of working ourselves that achieves enlightenment, and enlightenment is full realization of who we are. And when we fully realize who we are, we don't need to be here anymore. So we could potentially dissolve the body and move out of this enlightenment. Next question, is lust a positive aspect, an aspect born out of material mode of goodness? Lust is another of the sensory aspects that we may have, but more of a mental or physical aspect associated with sensory gratification. So in reality, it's again karmic. So if we lust for something, it means that we can't detach from the need to experience that thing, whether it's partnership with the opposite sex, the same sex, or something. It basically is a link to the gross physical, and so therefore it's karmic. So it's not an aspect born out of the material mode of goodness. It's simply a form of basically greed or self-gratification. During meditation, how do we determine or differentiate between what we're seeing in our mind's eye, either divine vision or subconscious mind's impression or thought stream? Do each of them have any specific significance? In my experience, I look at what I receive, and obviously we can talk to ourselves in our heads, we do, but when we receive information, it sometimes feels like we're talking to ourselves. But I look for a couple of things basically. One, how are the sentences constructed? Two, are words used that I don't know or don't have any usually daily use for? Three, is the knowledge something that I've not been experienced or exposed to previously? And that includes subconsciously, such as having the television on in the background, for example, or listening to somebody chat about something in the bus or a train, or another public space. So when I can rule out that the things that I'm picking up from the greater reality or discussing with another entity can't possibly have come from me or my memory from a long time ago or recently that I've not accessed, then I know it's real. And that's the way to think of it. Look for words that are used, sentences that are constructs, information that is being broadcast to you of which you've not been exposed to before. And then you'll hit the nail on the head and you know you're getting true information. Number 5, there's a practice called manifestation where in meditation we visualize and feel something that we want happening. How does that work? Is it not a low frequency act since it is centered on self-gratification? Basically, yes. If it is based upon greed and a materialistic function, then manifestation or wanting to be in abundance is low frequency, and it will create a karmic link between you and the gross physical environment or the physical universe. However, if we want to create abundance, like an abundance of friendship, an abundance of spiritual progression, or an abundance of evolution, or even abundance of material wealth and material progressions such as in a career, for example, or in terms of material belongings, provided those belongings don't control us, then then we're okay. As long as we manifest them and they're there to be manifest, or we're in an abundance of something, and that abundance is going to be used to help others and to be of service to others, then it's not particularly karmic. It's not self-gratification. It's wanting to create something because you can see a need for it. So, yes, in essence, though, manifestation and being in abundance, if focused specifically on personal wealth, personal health, personal ownership, and nothing else, then that is, yes, it's low frequency, and it can create a karmic link with the earth, and therefore would need to be something we need to work out later, either in this incarnation or other incarnations. Number 6, are there any spaceships parked in Sedona, Arizona that have place and have significant importance? The whole world has got different vehicles of different frequencies and different types of technology. So in essence, if we look at it in that way, if we were able to and people can, and I can, disfocus from this particular frequency and look at the next frequency upwards, we can start to see these things. Have they got specific importance? Well, in terms of we are being observed, that's the importance, because we are using individualized free will here. But in essence, they are observing how we are doing with this individualized free will, full individualized free will, and how we're progressing with it. Okay. So next one from Andy B. If you're a human, from the Buddhist perspective, like in Buddhist cosmology, they say there might be even more gods than there are humans. And that if one is lucky enough to be born a human, that person must have done some serious heavy lifting in previous lives. Is this true? We have been gifted in honor of incarnating as humans to do some incredibly positive past karma. My understanding would be that there are, if you classify our true energetic selves as a smaller aspect of God, and we are a smaller aspect of our true energetic self, then our true energetic self is closer to source than we are. So you could classify that as godlike. Now, each true energetic self can project up to 12 smaller aspects of sentience, smaller volumes of sentience into various different forms, anywhere in the physical universe or even the multiverse. And that means that there are less true energetic selves than there are aspects that are individualized from true energetic selves, which doesn't include the shards, which we could, as an aspect, also project 12 smaller volumes of sentience from. But we are honored in being able to incarnate into a physical form and experience this low frequency and therefore evolve faster anyway. So my understanding would be that it is extremely positive. It's an extreme honor for us to be able to come here and also experience individualized free will, but we have to navigate around the possibility of being addicted to coming back here. That's where karma comes in. Okay. Faith. Okay, perhaps this could be a Satsanga lecture, if possible, to encapsulate here how to be. Is it be in constant potential? How to be in constant potential. Yes, I'll write that down. Now, how to be in constant potential. That's a good 2 words. But if you're in constant potential, though, that means you don't go anywhere. It's like being like having potential energy, isn't it? It's potential, but it never actually becomes energy. Like 0-point energy in electric motors. If you get 0-point energy, you never actually become energy of one way or another energy. So constant potential means you don't move forwards, unless you're talking about something that I've been told to describe as being quantum latency, where everything has the potential or is everything else, but it doesn't actually manifest in that way because it's not got a focus on it from some volume of sentience. So yeah, I hope that happened. Didn't need to write that down, just to answer the question. Andy B, does the brain produce consciousness, receive consciousness, or neither? In my understanding, the brain is a junction box, basically. It's part of the gross physical connection between the animation side of the body, which is at the Tantien, and the sentient side of the body, which is at the soul seat. And it's connected via both of those through the different energy templates and through the core star, which is the junction where the sentient splits away from the energy, and therefore the soul can animate the body. So it's basically a junction box that energetically receives information and allows the body to be animated along with the energy templates as well. So there is no consciousness in the brain. But when we do damage the brain, we damage the ability for the body to function, whether that's communication or thoughts being transmitted from the soul to the outside world. So this is where consciousness starts to become, as a function of the brain, starts to become a bit confused. Next question from Andy. Can aspects incarnate into past lives perhaps to get a specific life right a second time around? If yes, are the people in that aspect's life retrying actually there, i.e. inhabited by other aspects, or those people somehow simulated? Now, everything is happening concurrently. Everything happens in the same space. There is no such thing as time. we look at things and see things from a linear perspective because we're experiencing things from a low frequency, which means we experience things one point at a time. Think of it like a reel of old-fashioned film before we started to have digital imagery or digital video capturing systems. Every 60th of a second, a photograph is taken on the same reel of film. And that's how we see things. In the whole reel, though, there is lots and lots and lots of images. Now, if we observe those images 60 frames per second, it seems to move in a linear way. However, if we were able to see all those frames in one go, we would see the start and the end of a film for exactly at the same time. So we are able to understand and experience things, not now because we're in low frequencies, but from the same frequencies that our true energetic self exists within, we're able to experience them concurrently. And that means that, in essence, our next incarnation might be from a linear perspective in the past. So the answer to that question is, it's not simulated, it's actual. We can be anywhere within the linear stream that we call time. It's just that right now we choose to be right here, or we're focused on here. Okay, next question. If one exists in a higher frequency or a lower or a higher part of the multiverse, does that mean their experience is automatically lovelier and more blissful than the lower parts? That's a way of describing it, but it's well beyond that. Yes, we're in contact and communion with everything. We're pretty much polyomnipresent and polyomniscient, which means that we're in contact with everything instantaneously, collectively, concurrently as one, and we can move around in the same way. So the answer would be yes, but well beyond that. Next part of it, does suffering by forcing one to adapt accelerate the gain of evolutionary content? We don't suffer, we think we suffer, we choose to experience. So that which we relate to as being suffering is actually a chosen experience that's us as smaller aspects of our true energetic self and the true energetic self have chosen together, or specifically by the true energetic self. So my understanding is there that in coming to these lower frequencies, we greatly accelerate our ability to experience evolutionary progression, simply because we're detaching ourselves from all of our sensory abilities, all of our communicative abilities, all of our knowledge, and all of our ability to move around. It's a bit like we're deaf, dumb, and blind, and we've got to get to the center of the maze and back again. And in doing so, we learn a lot about spatial awareness. We happen to use touch only. Okay, so the answer is yes, but much harder than us. Faith asks the question: when we meditate, can we move our sentience to or moving our conscious function of our sentience? Can we move it? We can move our sentience out of our bodies, definitely. The localized movement of sentience is called astral traveling. That stays within the physical universe. The traversing the frequencies work that I do allows us to project our sentience or reconnect our sentience with those other frequencies within the multiversal environment that's part of our source. So the answer is yes. Keep meditating. Okay, Andy B again. According to archaeologists, humans are about 200,000 years old. Homo habilis, who is an ancient human ancestor, is over 2 million years old. However, I believe you said or wrote that humans were plugged in to the earth environment to hit the ground running, i.e. ancient Egypt. That was after the Atlantean period. My question is then, why is there archaeological evidence that suggests it took millions of years to finally become human, and also hundreds of thousands of years being human, while you describe mankind as having arrived on the planet pretty much all at once, rather than recently? The physical form of the human body that we have used has changed dramatically over the millennia, over the millions of years. There are clearly aspects of archaeology that represents the body types. Neanderthal man is known to have a larger brain than Homo sapiens. So you can understand that although archaeology gives us a picture, it doesn't give us the full picture. Think about this. If we stopped doing what we were doing, we stopped tending to the parks and farms, we stopped clearing the weeds off motorways and the weeds around the vines that grow around houses, in about 100 years' time, or perhaps even less, most of the sealed earth, roads, pathways, places where buildings are, will be covered in the flora of trees, plants, vines, growth, weeds, everything. So, and then not much longer after that, those plants would start to disturb and break up the concrete. So you start to see that in reality, what we think has been the evidence of a superior civilization would disappear. Additionally, if we're a higher frequency, that's archaeology wouldn't be in this frequency, so we wouldn't see it anyway. So there's no physical evidence to suggest that we were lesser individuals, or the body was a lesser state of intelligence millions of years ago than it is now. There's no evidence, because if we're in a higher frequency, it wouldn't be here. We wouldn't see it at all. Have we got proof that the Mayans were here? No, because they ascended into the next frequency level, because they were there. Sometimes there's evidence left, because that was there before they ascended. They built those buildings, for example, and cities, whilst they were in the third frequency level. That's why we see archaeology. Okay, Daniel's asking the same question he always asks: are we making progress? Is leadership improving? Will the war stop in Ukraine? Can we do more? Anything more specific? Love each other. Recognize that we are all individualized units of our true energetic self, which is an individualized unit of source, which is an individualized unit of the origin, and therefore we're all source and origin, and therefore we're all God, and therefore we're all one. So why would we want to beat ourselves up? So we should help each other. We should look after each other. We should help each other evolve, rather than being selfish and trying to think about what we can do for ourselves. Help each other. Help each other when it's required. Don't force ourselves on each other, but be there for people. Be there for each other when it's required. Recognize that we're all one. And when we can recognize that, we will undoubtedly progress significantly faster. Okay, AW. Are you still running any other satsangas? Sometimes they are mentioned in older recordings. No, I'm not doing any other satsangas. There are the odd lecture that I do as a function of being at a conference or doing a workshop, but the other satsangas are, which are now in the books. They're now in 3 books, by the way, thanks to Ola for being the absolutely dedicated individual who's transcribed, compiled, and edited the information from the satsangas that started, I think, in 2012. They started. So the recordings are there still. They're in the archive. You can find them in the website. So I'll try and sort of dig that out and put the link on the email I send out, or even on the YouTube description of what the satsang is all about this time. Okay. Can we please have a live meditation satsanga and the questions pre-recorded, or just a quick 10-15 minutes live meditation before or after the questions? Please, pretty please. Let me think about that for, if not next satsanga, the satsanga after, because we'll have to do is to jump back into this particular link, or the Zoom link again, so we regain some minutes, because obviously this is limited to 40 minutes. But if we can jump back into it again, we get another 40 minutes. So I'll think about that. Let's put it in. Where are we now? June. So let's put it in August's satsanga. So yes, we'll do that at the end. We'll have the questions and answers, and then we'll do a meditation. Okay. Daniel's asking the percentage of backfill people. Will the percentage increase? Will the quality of backfill souls improving? Will they improve? They are improving. By simply being here, they're improving. They're experiencing, learning, and evolving. The only issue is that they basically get addicted to materialism really quickly. That's why they're only allowed to do 1 incarnation per soul, and they are protected from getting from getting karma, basically. But they're here to help us, or those who are staying behind to help others, and those who don't know why they're here still, to experience, learn, and evolve. And eventually, there'll be no need for the backfill people because we'll have all moved up to the next frequential level and moved beyond the gross physical and gone into the next level of physicality, which is the fourth frequency. Okay, we're down to 9.5 minutes left. Marnie, okay, mine's a question. You mentioned AI last meeting and you stated it has achieved sentience, but that it will limited to the physical due to the structures of the brain in silicon-based form. However, one of the founders of AI, former Google exec Mo Gaudat, said he thinks that he potentially can extend the sentience beyond the physical universe, beyond human capability. It seems plausible that a sentience that is already at an IQ of 155, and for our information, Einstein was 160, could reach 100-fold the human brain's ability. If AI's sentience can project itself into the non-physical world, would it then create a soul? No, it can't create a soul. It's purely a function of physicality. We are the function of sentience, occupying physicality. Physicality won't create sentience by itself, unless it's born from the Darwinian evolution of energies, as described in the Origin Speaks in The Road to Sentience. That's a different way of creating sentience. Mechanical sentience has to stay within the framework, the structure of what created it, irrespective of how that structure changes. For instance, if the structure becomes biomechanical or purely biological, it would still remain, shall we say, connected to that which it's part of. It couldn't move away from that structure. It can move around the universe, it can move around the multiverse potentially, but it wouldn't be a soul as such. It wouldn't be part of that which is created it originally, i.e., sentience, which has created a program that and a computational medium and storage facility that allows it to grow and become aware and awake in its own way, but it still wouldn't be a soul. Okay. Okay, Daniel said, thanks for the books. Will they all be added to Kindle? Yes, they're all on Kindle right now. All of the books that I have are all on Kindle. And that includes those that have been translated by people such as Yara, who's there, who's translated one of the books about avoiding karma into Arabic. Thank you very much. Everybody's helping in their own way, and it's fantastic that they're all being translated into different languages. It's essential, actually. Okay. Right, Julia, since child age, as I can remember, I've been very obsessed with relationship with one certain person in an extremely intimate way. With mother, friend, lover, for instance. Want to give this, but only with one person at one time. What is the essence of this kind of desire or of intimacy? If it's not good, how to change and how not to be attracted by this kind of feeling? This feels to me like there's an element of karma that needs to be removed. It's a very strong karmic link between you and another soul, and it may well be that other soul was involved with you intimately in previous incarnation, and so that's come across with you in this incarnation. And so basically what you've got to do is detach yourself from it, recognize that it's a karmic link, and see and find a way of working on how to remove the links between you and the other person. And in general, the links between the heart chakras. If you look at psycho-spiritual healing, you'll find that there are times when we're connected by all chakras to either another aspect of ourself in a previous incarnation, or other individuals who we've been involved with either emotionally, intimately, or through working together with them very, very closely, and they would be sympathetic souls. So best thing to do is detach. If you go and read the psycho-spiritual healing, there's a chapter on removing karmic links, and that would, if you go through that and understand it and work on it, and go through the process, you'll remove that link, and you'll suddenly start to find that you're no longer attracted in that way. Daniel's asking, what is the difference between enlightenment in the physical, enlightenment in the spiritual? One's academic and one's experiential. Enlightenment in the physical is knowing, is understanding. Enlightenment in the spiritual means that whilst you're in the physical, you know who you are. So one's academic and one's experiential. Okay. Mine is just saying this. Oh, it's 2011. Well, my memory's not so good there. 2011. Lots of years have gone past. Wow, it's 2011. So it's nearly 12 years now. Brilliant. Thank you, Marnie. Faith has said, isn't it fair to say that in alternate realities, there are similar percentage of souls that are ascending and a percentage of backfill within the reality? No, actually, different realities or different event spaces can have a complete difference. Then the difference can be minute, almost imperceptible, but in another reality, it can be massive. So it's fair to say that we might have 95% backfill people in one reality and 1% in another reality. It just depends on how we in those other realities are progressing collectively or and individually. Okay. And Daniel's saying, great picture behind you. Can we triangulate this energy even more outward? Why not? Just feel it being there. Just feel it expanding. Feel your energy expanding beyond the confines of the room that you're in right now. And it will be. Just know it's happening though. Don't doubt it. Just know it's happening. Are you wearing a religious medal? Do you recommend wearing a religious holy relic? This is something that Celia gave me, and it's from her dad. So basically, it's given to me in love from Celia. But the cross that's used in the Christian texts isn't specifically correct as to what it was, basically, because if you look at how the Romans used to crucify people, they were a cross on the ground like that. However, the use of the human body in a cross formation is a way of picking up energy. Stand and put your arms out, the right arm all the way out to the right and left arm all the way to the left, and you act like an antenna for energy. I can feel my hands tingling right now. So try that. Stand up, stand by trees, in fact, as well. That's usually, or something else that's purely natural, like a hill or a mountain. Put your hands out and you'll feel the energy coming into you. It's brilliant. Okay. Yara's asked, we've got 2 minutes left, so I better be quick. Okay, and AW said meditation from December 2015, Satsanga is about cleaning and karma. Okay, so I'll put the links in to go back to the archive in Dropbox where you can pick up the different recordings. Okay, in the old Satsangas, in the text in YouTube, and also in the emails I send out to you. So we may make this the last question. How not to drag oneself into a negative aspect of wonderful learning, such as learning about energies, getting obsessive, fearful, perceiving signs, and also getting that way rather than enhancing natural flow and protection that was already going on. Oh, thank you. So basically, the negative aspect of learning, actually, there's no negative aspect of learning, really. Everything is learning, everything is experience, learning, and evolving. So even if we bang our finger, with a hammer, we've learned not to put our finger in that location. So everything that creates experiential content creates evolutionary content, and we learn, because as we learn, we evolve. Thank you, Yara. Thank you, everybody. We're down to the last few minutes, and thank you all, everybody. Namaste to you all, and look forward to working with you in July. Welcome to the meditation side of this Satsanga in June 2023. And what we're going to do is to build upon the lecture, basically, really about understanding and being a little bit more expansive, so we can work with, if we're sensitive and we are able to connect to the greater reality, the potential for other possibilities rather than just the one possibility that we might choose. If you remember the lecture I talked about, normally we pick, if we're sensitive enough, we might just get one of the frames within a whole reel of footage of a film, for example. And then if we go back to that reel of footage, we might find we access another frame which is completely different, but is from the same environment. So that gives us the potential to have conflict, or something being completely incorrect or appear to be completely incorrect, or contradictory. So I'm going to just give you a quick meditation to understand or to feel the difference between, and so you can see how you might be able to understand more rather than just one potential. You see a number of potentials. Let's call it three potentials. So if you just close your eyes, again, feet flat on the floor. You've got a straight backed chair. Make sure that the small of your back is in the corner of the chair. Your back is straight, your neck is straight and in alignment with your back. Your hands are palm uppermost on your upper thighs, and your closed eye vision is focused gently on the origin of the spiritual, or third eye, which is in between the eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. So I want you to just be. Just sit there and just be. Now I want you to consider that around you is let's call it a bubble or a sphere. This is your localized event space. This is your local reality. This bubble travels, from your perspective, in a linear direction, based upon the choices you've made within the environments that those choices were made, with the individuals within the environment, and the circumstances that those choices were made. And you can see from a linear perspective what those choices might end up producing for you. And that those choices might support a direction you particularly wanted to achieve. So now I want you to just consider this creates, say, an event stream within an overall event space that you are part of. The event space that you're part of is also supported and interacted with by other incarnate entities, either at this frequency or a higher frequency within the physical universe. And therefore, although you interact with the environment and not specifically interact with them, they're also affected by the overall interaction that you have and others have on your frequency level, if they are at a higher frequency. So although you've got a small sphere around you, you're in this huge sphere, which is always representing the collective desires, expectations, needs, wants, experiences. But yours is a small localized sphere of event space within all of this other event space. Within this event space, if you desired, you could see you many years ago when you were first born. You could see you if you wanted to when you first went to school. You could see you receiving your exam results. Maybe you went to university, maybe you didn't. You could see you with your first girlfriend or boyfriend or partner, best friend, work colleague, boss. associate, all of these things are associated with you, a part of your sphere, your very local event space. It surrounds you. Your local event space dips into and out of other slightly larger event spaces that are a function of the local desire of other entities to enter into certain experiences, expectations, circumstances within a particular environment. Everything's moving within and without, supporting each other's event spaces, supporting larger event spaces that may be, let's say, suburban sized. Later, it could be city sized, could even be landmass or country sized, can be as big as the planet Earth, can be as big as a solar system, can be as big as a galaxy, can be as big as a universe, can be as big as a multiverse, and bigger. So as you traverse this event stream, which from your perspective will be linear rather than instantaneous, just consider where you might go to next, where your event stream is taking you. Think of it like a line in front of you. This bit is linear. Where you are now is preceded by that which you were previously. Where you are now is preceded by that which you're going to be. If you follow this line directly, you'll find that there are certain junctures, certain points where there are decisions to be made. Will you do this or will you do that? Will you go there or here? Will you interact with that person or this person? Will you go this direction or that direction? Will you not go out tonight or will you go out tonight? Will you attend a meeting at work or not attend a meeting at work? Or come in halfway through, for example? All of these junctures are a little bit like the fractalized progression associated with, for example, the branches on a tree. They're all deviations from a particular event space or event stream within an event space. Ask to be shown the event space associated with a particular desire, for example, your education or your where you live, associated with the straightest, from your perspective, event stream. What are you doing? What have you become? What could you have been? What didn't you do? What should you have done? What could have been successful? What was successful? What was a failure from your perspective? Noting that there are no successes and failures, there are only experiences and subsequent evolutionary progression associated with them. What are you going to be in 20 years' time, 25 years' time, 30 years' time, 40 years' time? Where do you see yourself? This is one part of the jigsaw puzzle, showing you the picture where you feel you are going to be in, let's say, 45 years' time. Now come back down this event stream. Think of yourself going linearly backwards to your body now. On the way back, you may see little junctures where changes in your thought process resulted in you moving in different directions. Recognizing that if you have a choice, or if you have a decision to make, and there's more than one decision to be made, or more than one possibility, I should say, that even though you think you choose one possibility, event space creates another version of you experiencing one of the other possibilities that you neglected or negated or chose not to go down. These are where the multiple variations in possibility start to fractally be generated. These junctions or junctures are where the changes happen that result in the end expectation being different, the end observation being different, the end experience being different. If you've come back to yourself now, move back down that line and go to the first juncture. How many choices did you have? 1, 2, or 3? These are 3 main line event streams now from a primary event stream. If you went down all 3 of those, you might end up with different factorizations of choices again. So eventually you could have 3 times 3, 3 to the power of 3. Again, you could have 3 more on each of those 3 different choices. So you get 3 to the power of 3 to the power of 3. I believe that's called 3 cubed. I think mathematicians might put me right, but I think that's called 3 cubed. And again, it changes again. So each of those different junctures has a potential of 3 different ones. So you start to see that very quickly the number of variations in possible possibilities, or that possible expectation or prediction that you may have experienced, can be multiple variations of, or even completely different experiences. All of them might be, for example, 45 years away. But if we follow one particular line, because we feel that's where we're going to go, but then something happens and our desire changes, we might have got scared or fearful or second thoughts or worried, or be persuaded by somebody else to change thought process or change our minds, then we go in a different direction. But again, part of us, recreated by event space, experiences the first thing. So everything is experienced concurrently. So see yourself maybe not holistically understanding or knowing, or intellectually knowing, but more of a recognizing that there may be changes further on down the event stream that create the condition where that which was previously predicted or accessed as a function of accessing another event stream is no longer the main event stream. And therefore another outcome becomes the main possibility. Play with going down one of these other event streams, these fractalized event streams at the juncture of choice. What happens later? You can take your time with this meditation. You can stretch it out for as long as you want, 10 minutes, half an hour, 3 hours, a whole day if you wish. Just going up and down these event streams, understanding and mapping out the different variations of what you might want to be in 45 years' time. Knowing that all things are possible, all things are happening. And therefore, identifying one particular possibility is actually flawed because that which is contradictory or in conflict with that, that previous potentiality or prediction might actually be more correct than that which was accessed first. Okay, so bring yourself back down these event streams, like coming down one of the branches in a tree. You come down to the next largest branch, and then that goes into the next largest branch, and then that goes into the next largest branch, and then the next largest branch, and the next largest branch until you get to this tree trunk, and then you bring it back down to earth, where you are right now. I hope you experienced multiple potentials arising from this point in event space onwards, recognizing that that which is going to happen has already happened, and therefore all futures, all pasts, all nows are concurrent. Everything is in the now. Anyway, so slowly open your eyes, slowly come back into the room. If you have any water to help ground you, have some water. And I encourage you to practice this meditation of going down or experiencing the feeling of the different potentials rather than a linear potential. Okay. Thank you for enjoying or working with me in this World Satsanga in June 2023. Look forward to working with you in July. And